Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you, as always, so much for joining me here. And the topic I want to talk about today is actually a topic I've been sitting on for a really, really long time. I actually researched this and thought about it and reflected upon it. I'm going to say up to a year ago now. And I've been sitting on it for a while because I think it's bigger than what I could ever cover here. And I want to talk about it because as the year winds down, I feel like a lot of energy winds up. We get like this last burst of energy towards the end of the year. Things get busy at the end of the year with all the types of celebrations that are going on. And I don't know about you, but this year has felt really draining and heavy. And quite frankly, I'm just tired. And tired is not necessarily a bad thing. We've got to be tired, so we rest, right? But I don't know. I just feel like this concept that I'm going to talk about today is something that has plagued me for quite some time. And the more I research into it, the more I pull back from it because I can see, oh my goodness, this is full on. And I've been feeling this for a really long time and I just didn't know it was a thing until now. So before we get into that though, how is everyone? We've just come through such an amazing new moon and we're kind of ramping up to a full moon at the end of this week, and we're walking into eclipse season. So for those of you that aren't aware, eclipse season, think sudden changes or information revealed. And as you know, there's a lot of shifting and changing and a lot going on, a lot of surprising endings. Not that many beginnings, but that's not to say that beginnings aren't a good thing or happening in your life right now. We've been sitting in a lot of retrograde energy, which I think explains that kind of heaviness and that fatigue as we move towards the end of the year. Yet also in juxtaposition to that, I'm also feeling this burst of energy and like I really want to take the rest of the year by the horns and maybe not make up for lost time necessarily, but make up for lost energy. And so what I don't want to do is throw myself into fatigue because of that. So I actually think right now is the perfect time to be talking about this, and that is decision fatigue. All right, let me talk it through. And just to preface this, obviously, I am not a medical professional. This is just me airing thoughts, cracking open conversations, maybe thoughts in you. And by no means is this supposed to be any type of diagnostic moment on the pod or advice. I'm just airing kind of what I have discovered. And like I said, every time I go to scratch this surface or kind of look at the research that has been done on decision fatigue, I just find out more information and it's a bit like a rabbit hole. So I'm going to try and keep it super anecdotal and simple for you as possible, for you, but also for me as well. So decision fatigue isn't necessarily something you can get diagnosed with. It's basically, it's a concept. And J Health Psychology defines decision fatigue as the impaired ability to make decisions and control behavior as a consequence of repeated acts of decision making. Evidence suggests that individuals experiencing decision fatigue demonstrate an impaired ability to make trade-offs and prefer a passive role in decision-making processes and often make choices that seem impulsive or irrational. So as a result, basically, of just being really, really tired of constantly having to make decisions. Now, I want you to kind of sit back for a moment, maybe pause this after I explain this, and scan your day so far. So even if you're listening to this first thing in the morning, scan your day so far. Watch yourself walk through your day and just observe how many decisions that you've already made today. So pause it and scan. When you come back, I'm sure that you will be surprised at how many decisions you've actually made on the fly automatically and how much your brain is working without you, or your conscious thought is working, without you even realizing it. One study suggests that American adults, I couldn't find Aussie stats, but American adults make around 35,000 decisions a day if we're sleeping for 8 hours. So that makes roughly 2,000 decisions per hour, or one decision every 2 seconds. Now, I many of you know who have listened to the podcast for a while, I used to be a primary school teacher. So it is pretty common research out there that teachers especially are known as a profession that makes many decisions at the one time throughout the entirety of the day. I would probably put nurses and medical professionals like that on par with it. And I don't mean intentionally to leave anyone out, because we're all lumped in the whole adult making, 2,000 decisions per hour. But research conducted in the 90s, and it's really widely referred to still by schools, found that teachers roughly make around 1,500 decisions on top of their normal decisions in a school day. Critical nurses make decisions around every 30 seconds. So that was a study done in 2000 by Bucknell. And so that would equal to almost 15,000, 1440 decisions in a 12-hour shift. So if you're like just normal humaning, but then on top of that, you've got a job that demands you to quickly make decisions, I would say, by the way, anecdotally, it is way more than that when you're managing a class. So when I think back to my day, if I scan my day as a teacher, when I'm managing a class of 30 to 35 children, I'm delivering lessons, I'm considering what each of them need, I'm making decisions about how to, discipline, I'm making decisions about how to deliver this lesson, I'm handling the lesson, making decisions around that, deciding who we work with, who we don't, deciding when we stop, when we don't. Like, it's constant, and there's like multiple layers to decisions in each decision. Then add like the leadership responsibilities on top of that, so you're constantly making decisions throughout the day for your staff members, their students, as well as the parents that are all involved in that. So decision fatigue isn't something that is new to me, but it's something that I've definitely been considering a lot lately. So basically, decision fatigue boils down to the fact that we're constantly making decisions and we just can't become depleted from that. And then when I reflected on it, I thought, wow, I wonder how much that has actually really amplified because of the use of social media and smartphones. So we're constantly making the decision to pick up that phone, to look at information. Our brain's trying to take on that information, synthesize it, wondering which information to hold, which information to throw out. And that is scrolling. Like, if you look at social media stats, look at your social media stats, how often people stay on your posts or look at your reels. It's really only the first couple of seconds, and then people are moving on. So if you think that there is so much information coming in and our brain has got to make a decision about what to do with that information to move forward, oh my gosh, you can just you can see why I can go down the rabbit hole and be like, decision fatigue is something I think that we have to be really super conscious and aware of to prevent getting to the stage of being so frazzled, so worn out, and ultimately so fatigued. So some of the symptoms in my research of decision fatigue include just feeling really mentally drained. Like, are you one of those people that come home at the end of the day and be like, I cannot speak to anyone. I don't want to speak to anyone. I don't want to make a decision about the rest of my night in terms of what we're having for dinner, what we're even going to do that night, or making decisions about the next day in terms of where we need to go forward. So you're just completely drained at the end of the day and just mentally done. And as a result of that, you've got this increase in negativity that could come out in the form of emotions, but it can also come out in the form of thinking. So you're just, by the end of the day, you're thinking quite negatively and quite limited. And as a result of that, your judgment is weakened. So as the definition alluded to, that when we're making decisions, we're making them really reactively and responsively as opposed to carefully considered. You also get really disinterested, like I said, in making decisions by the end of the day, or you're procrastinating about making a decision. Like, you just don't want to make a decision, so you just completely put it off. And now this can happen on a daily basis, but I also think it accumulates over time And I don't know about you, but I've been noticing my behavior, especially when it comes to my social media use, like picking up that phone. It's so weird because I've been trying to get out of the habit of looking at my phone in the morning. I spoke to James Carson ages ago, so go right back. It was it was in the first month or two of the podcast I spoke to James, and we talked about morning routines and how important they are for setting yourself, your body, your rhythms, your mind, and your emotional state up for the day. And at that time, he challenged me to keep the phone out of the bedroom and to not look at it when I woke up. And I have to say, I have not been successful. I would love to be successful with that, but I almost feel like I've become a little bit obsessed with checking my phone and socials, because it's almost like I feel like there's this FOMO in terms of me missing out information, or it's just really, really addictive. And I'm not someone that gets FOMO in their personal real life interactions. I really don't. So it's so weird that I get FOMO from this. And I think that is probably linked to the addictive nature. But I have to take stock and realize and have probably a little bit of a serious talk with myself, because it's really impacting me. Because again, as soon as I put that phone on, my mind, whether I want it to or not, is making decisions by looking at what I view, how I view it, and then the things that I do choose to view, what do I do with that information that is presented to me? So how to counteract this? Because ultimately we will have to go through our days and make many, many decisions. So I've been looking at ways myself of things that I can implement so I can try to avoid some of that decision fatigue. Because to be quite honest, I want to be in a position where I'm not tired of making decisions. So when I have to make decisions, I'm actually making decisions that are really in line with my values, with my current goals and intentions that I've set for myself, and not letting myself down purely because I'm tired. And this isn't about being at my ultimate and my best all the time. That's unrealistic, and I don't think that necessary. I'm talking about just getting to the point at the end of the day where, for example, I can't be bothered to decide what to cook for dinner, or I get to the end of the week and I can't be bothered to meal prep, all that kind of stuff, because I just can't think about making a decision of what I need next. And I find that I get really bad decision fatigue after really busy work hours. And when it comes to big events, so people's birthdays or Christmas, that's coming up. And I know I just get to that point and I know I've got decision fatigue, because the things I want to make great decisions over, like what gifts I'm buying or what I'm going to contribute to these celebrations in terms of maybe what I'm cooking or bringing or whatever, it just feels like laborious to make those decisions. And I don't want to be at that point. I want to enjoy making those decisions, because those decisions are the spice of life, I think. So how can we avoid it, or what are the things that I've tried to avoid getting to that point where I'm really fatigued by decision making? First is obvious. Decrease the numbers of decisions that you are making. So this is the biggest one. So I have implemented quite a number of things in the last few months in my life where actually the decision making is taken out of my control, or it has become a natural, normal part of our days. This is when our routines and our rituals really come in and hold and support us. So basic one, going to the gym. I recently joined a gym where it's not classes, so I have to go and basically make a decision about what I'm going to do there. And I just was really overwhelmed by that. And I think it's because I have decision fatigue. I just don't have the capacity to make that decision for myself. So I supported myself by getting this app that literally just walks me through weightlifting classes basically, so I don't have to make those decisions for myself. So that investment has actually saved me so much time, but made going to the gym an actual really pleasurable experience, purely because that is an hour where I'm not making decisions. So it's like carving out this time for myself where I'm not making a decision. My morning routine, although obviously I'm still challenging myself in terms of not picking up that phone, but my morning routine has been a big one. So I actually have a really consistent morning routine. I get up, I come straight out into the living room, I take any type of medication that I need. I'm only on one medication for my thyroid. I take all that and I sit down straight away and I meditate, and then I journal, and then I get up and get dressed, and it's either jumping onto clients or it's out the door to yoga or the gym. So that is the same for me every single morning. The only variation to that I have is on a Sunday, where I will get up, I will do all the morning routine steps up until the work or the gym, and at that point I will go out and maybe grab myself a coffee. It's kind of like my little treat morning where I can go out and just do something really nice and luxurious, and there I'm tapping into what I feel like, as opposed to making a decision about what is best for me and what to do. So pretty much up until about like midday, I'm not really making any decisions other than what I'm wearing and what I'm eating, but I'll get to those. So having a really solid morning routine helps take the decision making out. As much as I kind of resist and don't like doing it sometimes, but meal planning, oh my gosh, it is a lifesaver for me in terms of in terms of really succumbing to decision fatigue at the end of the day, especially. I just sit down and I plan what my dinners are going to be, what my breakfasts are going to be, and what my lunches are going to be. And I just shop for those things each week. So it's like a one-time decision that I have to make. It's all planned out. I even write it out, what day I'm going to eat what or cook what. And so it's all planned out. I don't have to think about it. Of course, there are times when I get to a Thursday and for example, I don't feel like eating salmon and broccoli for dinner. And so sometimes it's a decision of, well, do I swap that out for a meal during the week, or do I just suck it up and eat it? It's totally fine. And I'm probably just tired, which is why I don't feel like that option. And, but having it there cuts out the decision making of really trying to make a healthy decision when I'm really, really tired. So meal prepping is really important, but also clothes. Now, this is something I used to more do when I was teaching, actually. I used to also clothes plan. So I would actually set up my clothes for the entire week. So again, it was just not a decision I had to make in the morning. Another big tip that I have again been trying to implement myself is giving myself decision-making breaks. So to me, going for a walk or sometimes just scrolling, even though I'm obviously not advocating that, but during the day, making sure I'm giving myself breaks from the work, from the routine, from the rituals, from the day-to-day stuff that I have to get done. So I know if I'm going for a walk for an hour on a Friday afternoon, I know that that's an hour. I need to make zero decisions. I just need to put one foot in front of the other. I've already made the decision. I'm going for a walk, and it totally gets me off the hook for about an hour. Obviously, being in deep connection with yourself through mindfulness practices and meditation is going to always strengthen your knowledge. And once knowledge is power. So when you know yourself really well, you're able to implement these things really simply, because in the long run, it's actually going to benefit you a lot. And this one, is music to my ears. When I was researching how to avoid it, this one was on everybody's list, and that is to make lists. Now, I am a list maker. I love a list. So I don't have to remember what I have to do, because there's so much that comes at me running, I run 3 businesses. So there's so much that comes at me during the day that I have so much to remember. So I have a notepad beside me at all times, and it's just full of lists of things I have to do, and each page is a different day. So, if it's a task that I don't have to do to a Friday, I put it on the Friday so I don't have to remember to make that decision to do that task. It is just there. I think I'm so obsessed with lists because I love crossing things off my list. I have definitely been guilty of, probably on a daily basis, of adding things to my list that I've already done just so I can cross them off. So to me, that's a sense of achievement, but making lists really, really helps. And the thing that I have to work a lot harder on is looking at that list and seeing which of the things that I personally don't have to do. What can I delegate? What can I put in the hands of others appropriately, obviously? So I am not the one pressurized to make all the decisions. So obviously, in a family situation, maybe sharing the mental load of running a household with your significant other or even the kids, to give those decisions to other people to help you make them, so it's not all on your shoulders. I mean, I am not a mother, but my goodness, when I watch my friends and my sister in the mental load of decision making and that added layer when you've got other people to consider, is a lot. And so how can you delegate some of those decision making moments so you don't come into this fatigue? So as we wrap up towards the end of this year, like I said, I kind of feel like it's an amp up because I feel like the energy this year has been really sludgy, and I want to take the rest of this year by the horns and go for it. I'm really inspired, especially by the latest new moon, and coming up on Friday, the release of the full moon is just going to be so awesome in Aries. And so I am making the decision to actually set myself up for success in not becoming decision fatigued. If you have any other tips, I am all ears, because like I said, decision fatigue is something that I absolutely want to avoid at all costs, because I know it actually costs me a lot in terms of my energy levels, my sanity, my discernment, and also completely can very easily completely off the rails, disrail me from what it is that I'm aligning with and going after and being that highest version of myself. So if you have any tips for avoiding decision fatigue, I'm like begging you, go chuck them on the Facebook page, the Light Path community, because I would really, really, really want to hear them so I can add them to my bag and other people can add it to theirs. But for now, as always, thank you so much for listening. Episode 101. Oh my goodness, can you believe it? I feel like I just need to do a big breath out. We are at episode 101. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. All the listens, all the downloads, all the ratings, all the feedback, all the support. I can't thank you enough. I love, as I've said many times before, connecting with you in this way. I actually will be taking a break from the podcast towards the end of this year. So I'm going to take the last couple of months of this year off the podcast. But I mean, there's 101 episodes there, so I'm sure you haven't listened to them all. So there's so much content for you to listen to, so that we can be back bigger and better than ever, avoiding that decision fatigue over the podcast, giving myself a break, taking myself out of the game for a little while. But I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you so much. And for now, I will leave you there, sending you all my love and light as you navigate your own path.